expansion on that Sanish and partial map that you saw. What you see on the left-hand side there is the oil industry of decades ago. The vertical well industry that started in the 1950s and ran through the 1990s. Look at all those well spots over there. What you see today is the industry of the 21st century. Wells being very organized in where the surface locations are located, and then using horizontal well bores to extract the resource. I want to show you the difference in the footprint on the land. Make sure you look at the left-hand side when you look at the footprint of decades ago versus the footprint of today. It is amazing how that looks. Let's just jump back and forth. There's what we're draining with that. Look how the locations are lining up along major thoroughfares and roads where we can put the pipelines and everything in and make that work. I'm not sure where the pointer is on this thing, but I'm going to give it a try. I want to show you this little stretch of road right down here. It's about 7 miles long. The drilling rig wasn't there the day that Vern came out and took this picture, but there you have it. That's what it looks like from the air. 7 miles long, 14 well pads alternating there. Look at the beautiful Badlands, completely undisturbed, and yet we're extracting the oil from underneath those Badlands with the wellbores going to the south. This is the pattern that's developing out across the west through McKenzie and Williams County, where the surface locations are 4 miles apart. The wells are drilled toe-to-toe, and so we leave most of the landscape completely undisturbed. This little section of road, I think this is a marathon operation. One lonely little pumping unit on each one of those locations, but he's waiting for his brothers and sisters to show up because one well isn't going to extract the oil from the Bakken and Three Forks. It's probably going to take 7 or 8. But they'll be drilled from those same pads. So what we've done here is disturbed about 70 acres of land, and we're going to extract the minerals from 20,000 acres with that 70 acres of disturbance. What a beautiful thing to be able to do. By the way, business opportunity, Vern Witten Photography right out of Fargo here, out there doing aerial photographs of the Bakken and Three Forks play. If we take a look at rig count, we just took a spurt last week while I was on vacation. I left on vacation with 184 rigs operating. I came back to 192. We have decoupled this thing to a great extent from oil price. Used to always be coupled to oil price. I always like to point out I took the job right here. We got down to 0 rigs in February of '99, got a good baseline established, and now we're showing what we can do. All right. You can see that this thing really is decoupled from oil price to a great extent because these companies have taken much of the geological risk and much of the economic risk out of this play. It is a true resource play. We drilled 1 dry hole last year in 1,213 wells. They're calling it a dry hole. It was drilled up there in Divide County. They just got in the wrong layer. Kathy and I agree on that. It wasn't a dry hole. They just got in the wrong rock. And so really, 1,213 successive producing wells. 78% of those are going to make more than a 10% rate of return for their investors. Just a fabulous play and what it's generating for North Dakota. The size of this thing, it covers 15,000 square miles. It runs from I-94 to the Canadian border. It runs from Highway 49 to the Montana border, and it'll be followed up by the Tyler and the Spearfish plays. This thing is like a bison fullback. 300 pounds, 4-second, 40 yards, coming at you. What are you going to do with it? Well, you give it the football and let it run. That's what you do with something like this. It is enormous in size. It is gigantic. We coined a new adverb. We call it ginormous to describe the Bakken and Three Forks. This is the production profile of a typical Bakken well. They come on really strong and they fade fast, but as Jim said, they stay on the landscape for a long time. We're using a 28-year model. Over that time, this is what that Bakken well does, that single Bakken well. We've drilled 2,600 of them. It's going to produce about 575,000 barrels of oil. It's going to generate $20 million of net profit for its investors. It's going to pay $4.25 million in taxes, sales, extraction, and gross production taxes, about $7 million out to the mineral owners, wages and salaries of $1.6 million, operating expenses going to the power company and all those guys of almost $2 million, and it costs a little under $7 million to drill and complete that well. We're seeing a lot of them these days now approaching $9 million depending on the frac stages. We're expecting about 2,000 wells a year to be drilled in western North Dakota, and this thing has got legs. We're looking at a 20-year life for the drilling play alone here. So as we think about business opportunities, we need to think about being here a long time. This is what we expect production to do. We're now at 385,000 barrels a day. We are very going to easily achieve this P50 goal of 475,000 barrels a day, and we're really anticipating that we're going to move into second place in the nation at 750,000 to 1 million barrels of oil a day. That's based on, this is the USGS number of 5 billion barrels of oil. We think we're currently looking at that and expecting the USGS to come out with a new number that's more than double of that, of the 11 billion barrels a day. Let's talk fracking. Why do we frack this rock? Well, you're going to get to look at the rock later as you talk to Kathy. But let's talk about the why, the how, and the regulation of it. All the easy oil's already been developed, the oil that flows without fracking. These unconventional resources have to be fracked in order to produce. They're uneconomic without it. You have to create a path for the oil to flow. This is what it looks like at the surface. I'm going to mention later, but those tanks are built in Fargo, out here at O'Day, and I see them coming down the interstate every day and going by my office. It takes anywhere from 100 to 200 of those tanks and some amazing truck drivers to get them onto the location. We pump 2 to 4 million gallons of fresh water and an average of 4 million pounds of sand or ceramic beads into this well at a cost of $2 million. Takes 20,000 horsepower running on the surface for anywhere from 3 to 6 days to get that job done. What happens downhole is, first we pump in these miniature bowling balls. They're made out of the same thing as a bowling ball, and they start at 1/8 of an inch, and they run up to about 5 inches in diameter. They open these sliding sleeves that Jim talked about and direct the water out into the rock to form a crack, and then we pump the beads or sand into that crack to hold it open. And we pump one after another, up to 40 stages now of these bowling balls. Each one is a little bit larger than the last one, about 1/8 to anywhere from 1/16 to 1/8 of an inch larger than the last one, so that it fits into a different hole downhole. And we chop this wellbore up into about 300-foot long sections and hydraulically fracture the rock like that. All of that is taking place. There we go. So the purpose is the frac fluid is to crack the reservoir. The gel carries the sand. And then all of that is flowed back out of the well. Looks like this when you're done, a spider web of cracks in the rock. Looks like this when you're done, if you could slice it open and look at a typical horizontal well. Why do we want to regulate this at the state level? Every basin, every state is different. We're blessed with fantastic geology here in North Dakota, not like Pennsylvania at all. If you look at a cube of the geology of North Dakota, you can see we're fracking down here, your drinking water is up here, and we're getting rid of the frac fluid right here. So you drink water from the top 1/4 of a mile, or 1/2 a mile. We dispose of the wastewater 1 mile below the earth, and we're fracking down here 2 miles below the earth, with rock layers upon rock layers in between. We've been regulating this business for decades. We know how to do it in North Dakota. Water Commission does the supply. We do the well construction and flowback. The Health Department does it. Engages if there's any kind of an incident or accident. So, the Water Commission's job, don't let them extract too much groundwater. We got to drill 2,000 to 3,000 wells a year for 15 to 25 years. We need 30 million gallons of water a day. That's a huge number. So, they've mapped out the glacial aquifers. You can see them out here. They're capable of supplying about 7 million gallons a day. We got to get 23 million gallons from someplace else. The logical place is the Missouri River. 1 inch of water out of Lake Sakakawea is 10 billion gallons. That's enough to frack 5,000 wells at 2 million gallons a well. 1 inch is a 2 to 2.5 year supply. So in 20 years, we could lower that lake 10 inches.